Welcome to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. This week, we've discussed several important topics, including the potentially devastating 7.2 earthquake in the metro, the future of disaster risk innovation, and a food innovation that aims to support farmers. To kick off, here's my interview with DOST Secretary Dr. Renato Solidum, where we talk about the risks and preparation strategies for the big one.
Well, based on the studies conducted by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology and the United States Geological Survey, the West Valley Fault would move between 400 to 600 years. And the last major movement of this fault occurred in the 1600s, or around 1648. Therefore, if we look at the lower limit of the recurrence interval of the fault movement, then it can happen in our generation or it can happen in the next generations. The issue, though, is that since the West Valley Fault is situated in the eastern side of Metro Manila, the risk in terms of people to be affected, the number of buildings and infrastructure that can be affected would be very high, because Metro Manila is such a dense metropolis in terms of buildings and population.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to anticipating or at least simulating the effects, actually, based on recent reports, there is the Rapid Earthquake Damage Assessment System that has been prepared by the DOST and FIVOX in particular that will help in science-based decision-making. Are efforts like these, do you feel, could minimize the potential damage of events or the big one, if ever it does happen anytime soon? Do you feel that efforts like this could help minimize the risk or the potential damages if adhered to by the general public and, of course, our decision makers?
Yes, essentially, if we look at the impact scenarios that we have created, there are indications that if we just focus on just expecting the potential impact of earthquake without improving our resilience in terms of infrastructure, then around 50,000 deaths due to the direct impact of either collapses of houses and buildings or injury during falling episodes of concrete and other objects during the earthquake. That would be 50,000 around Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces within Regions 3 and 4A. But if we also look at the potential very seriously injured, that would be around 25,000. But if we do something, then we would reduce the potential impact. That scenario is estimated for a nighttime scenario, but if in case the earthquake would happen during office time and school time, then we would see more of the effect on the schools, and essentially the damage would be the same, but the population affected might be slightly different.
You know, given the importance of building safety, Doc, we talk about the measures that have to be taken in terms of making sure that buildings are more disaster resilient and the infrastructures are disaster resilient. We've seen efforts, at least from the national level, when it comes to standards at the moment for evacuation centers, making them sure that they are earthquake ready, flood ready, and so on. But beyond those particular centers, should the national government or even the local government units, in terms of keeping up the standards, is retrofitting major buildings or a lot of the infrastructure still possible to be able to withstand a 7.7 magnitude earthquake or 7.2, as is estimated with the big one?
Well, essentially, we need to really clarify where we would expect significant damages. If you look at an earthquake scenario where the population or the buildings are close to the epicenter of the fault, then the energy of the earthquake released during the movement of the fault is fast. And in that sense, the lighter buildings, hence the shorter buildings, one-story to mid-rise buildings, will be shaken more than the heavier buildings or the tall buildings. Now, this would then result to more damage and collapse to shorter to mid-rise buildings, and around 10 to 13% of the population of the residential up to 10 stories and mid-rise buildings below 30 stories would be affected by the scenario from the West Valley Fault. Now, in terms of the effect to very high-rise buildings, we expect very small damage. This would then show that with the high-rise buildings, we are very strict on the implementation of the structural code, plus the fact that owners would tend to make sure that these really follow the code. Otherwise, nobody would rent these buildings. So we also need to emphasize that short and tall buildings must prepare for a strong shaking. Let's take the case of Myanmar. If you look at the Myanmar damage, most of these are either residential or short buildings to slightly mid-rise buildings. But in Bangkok, which is so far away, the taller buildings are affected simply because as earthquakes are released near the epicenter, more of the shaking will be very fast. But as the earthquake waves move away, then it transforms to slower shaking, and the tendency is for the high-rise buildings to sway, and the liquid containers like liquid tanks, water tanks, and swimming pools will also be severely affected. That is why, if the talk is about the Metro Manila earthquake scenario, we need to emphasize that all types of buildings must prepare for the earthquake, especially the mid-rise to low-rise buildings, simply because there are many non-engineered buildings in Metro Manila. Now, on the government side, we have been preparing for this potential earthquake, and that is why, under the Department of Public Works and Highways, we have been retrofitting key government buildings like hospitals and schools, but these need to continue. The major problem now would be at the local level, where residential buildings are tremendous in number, and there are very old buildings constructed before 1992, and 1992 was the year when we really changed our building code for the better, so that we need to make sure that people understand that even if they have a bungalow-type buildings, they must be assessed for earthquake resistance.
Sir, for the regular people who are not, unfortunately, decision makers when it comes to how their buildings are constructed, or those who aren't able to move around, there have been rather a lot of education efforts when it comes to how people should react or can react, or even having the proper go bag relief packages ready for certain earthquake scenarios. Is education the key way to get people ready for all of these? I remember, especially pre-pandemic, ang dami po nating mga earthquake drills, national earthquake drills, or Metro Manila earthquake drills in particular. Do these campaigns need to be reignited even further, considering just what happened in Thailand and Myanmar? Just a reminder of what could happen in Metro Manila, especially given yung time frame nga natin that hundreds of years ago was the last time the fault moved.
I totally agree, but we need to make sure that it's not simply about how to properly react or respond during the earthquake shaking. We also need to introduce two things. One is to be able to assess the earthquake resilience or safety of a concrete hollow block house. So at the DOST FIVOX, we created an app where we can assess the safety of your building for an earthquake by answering 12 questions. So you can actually Google how safe is my house app. And out of the 12 questions, these are very easy to answer. This pertains to the age of the building, the materials used, the design of the house, and if the code was followed. It's very easy to follow, and one would be able to have an appreciation whether their building is most likely to collapse or suffer significant damage. Second is to make sure that at the family level, at the household level, the preparedness that is being done in the school must also be done in houses, in offices. So in 2015, when I was still the director of FIVOX, I suggested to the Department of Education to create a homework which would consist of a series of questions about earthquakes preparedness, about their house, so that their answers to the questions would actually give them an earthquake preparedness plan and response plan in their homes, in coordination with their barangay. So this must be done, but definitely after assessment, after preparing how to respond to an earthquake, the 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 very vital action that must be done is to assess all buildings, especially at the local level, find out if they are earthquake resistant, retrofit these buildings if it's cost effective to retrofit, and condemn the buildings that must be condemned.
When we return, we'll take a closer look at the platforms for disaster preparedness that will be featured at the upcoming 50th International Exhibition of Inventions in Geneva. Stay with us. Weather HQ will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching Weather HQ. Filipino scientists and innovators are at the forefront of developing advanced technologies to enhance disaster preparedness and resilience, helping communities understand, assess, and prepare for potential hazards. To explore these platforms further, here's my interview with Mabelen Kahulogan, the officer in charge of the Geology and Geophysics Research and Development Division at PhilVox.
So I'm a geologist and I work under the Geology and Geophysics R&D division. Our task is mainly to map geological hazards brought by earthquake and volcanic eruptions, and that would include ground rupture, liquefaction, tsunami, and others. For volcanic eruptions, we map lahar, lava, pyroclastic nested currents, and others. We are also a part of a team that produces innovative solutions to communicating the information that we have generated. So that's the reason why Hazard Hunter PH and Geoanalytics PH were developed. So for Hazard Hunter PH, one just needs to go to the Hazard Hunter platform. It's at hazardhunter.georis.gov.ph, and one just has to double tap or double click a location on the map or put in a Google search bar, which is integrated in the system, the location of the area that they want to assess. And all the hazards information and assessment will be given them at a second or two, depending on the internet connection. So this is very crucial for planning purposes and for investment purposes. For Hazard Hunter PH, it's not just confined to the hazards that we are generating, but it also shows information related to hydromet hazards, including floods and rain-induced landslide, and as well as severe wind and storm surge. Those hazards information are generated by our national agencies, namely PAG-ASA and as well as MGB. So the process really in developing the system is a whole of government approach, which we really need at the moment so that the public and other sectors of society will be able to access information right at their fingertips in just one platform.
It feels that this
for
is...
Geoanalytics,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for Geoanalytics PH, the main target for this would be local government. And for local government units, they can generate immediately hazard assessment reports and as well as information necessary for their planning purposes and decision-making process, which is very important so that they can produce projects related to disaster risk reduction at a much easier way and as well as in an efficient manner, which we really need at the moment because we don't know when a typhoon or when an earthquake will strike us.
You know, this feels very timely considering we're actually still continuing our coverage of the recent earthquake in Myanmar, Thailand. When you take a look at how this could actually help disaster preparedness in the country, you mentioned Hazard Hunter a while ago and listed down all its features. Do you feel that this could actually inform people more or maybe even educate them on what needs to be done to secure yung location nila, especially if their houses, their homes, or their workplaces are in particular areas of concern?
Yep. The reason that Hazard Hunter was produced or was developed was for us to be able to communicate well the hazards. First, for them to identify their location with respect to the nearest active fault, for example, if we're looking at earthquake hazards. We developed the fault finder, if you know about this already, back in 2016, but we thought that that would be limiting to just active faults information. So the Hazard Hunter PH not just gives the proximity or the location with respect to a known active fault, but also the recommendations that the public needs to employ. So, for example, if you click on the screen, you would know the proximity, your proximity with respect to fault, but then the recommendation also, what now if you're near a fault or far from the active fault.
Ms.
We
Babylon,
also want to...
I'm sorry, I don't mean you, but you also mentioned something that I really want to touch on as well. You mentioned that this could actually be used in terms of making sure that your investments are sound, considering it is going to be some the natural hazards and of course the potential risks could actually impact the appetite for investment.
Yes. Actually, banks are already partnering with us to integrate the Hazard Hunter PH application into their own information systems because they see the value of actually evaluating assets with respect to their exposure level to natural hazard. So, for example, if a particular area is transected by a fault, they would have to require the borrowers mitigation plans and as well as preparedness plans. So not just fault, but as well as other hazards like floods or landslides.
All right, so now I want to talk about geoanalytics because you mentioned this is more geared towards the LGU. Just a bit of clarification there. Is it a tool for them to actually to be able to input data themselves, or is it supposed to be something that they are going to be able to use as a decision-making tool for whatever projects that they will end up doing in a given period of time?
So the Geoanalytics PH actually has a back-end tool, which is the GeoMapper, where the local government can input their exposure information, meaning the location of their buildings or assets and other information that needs assessment. The Geoanalytics is the front-end application that shows us per barangay, for example, or municipality, city, and province, the exposure level of particular assets and even the population. It will show us the number of people per age and sex, if these are exposed to or not to a particular hazards. And from there, local government can actually formulate this science-based decision-making or decisions for their plans. So, for example, if they have more senior citizens and children, then they can actually create more facilities that would cater to this age group.
Up next, we'll be sharing how Occidental Mindoro State College is supporting local onion farmers through an innovative discovery. Stay tuned. Weather HQ will be right back. And welcome back. You're still watching Weather HQ. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Now, let's talk about the creation of onion ice cream. That's right. Now, this actually is a unique treat that combines the humble onion with the sweet creaminess of ice cream. This innovative project not only offers a delicious snack, but also serves as a resourceful solution to help local farmers utilize the abundant onion harvest in Occidental Mindoro. When life gives you onions, let's find out what we can learn about this ingenious creation. Let's watch this interview.
Occidental Mindoro is an agricultural province wherein the people are relying on farming activities for them to have budgets or for them to be able to have what they have on their tables. And isa sa mga problema po that the farmers are facing is that when the price of the onion drops, wala po silang option kundi sometimes nakakalungkot. nasisira po yung kanilang mga yung kanilang mga produce. So what we did is that for us to be able to help our farmers is that we really dive into research for us to be able to create something that is very unusual. Who would have thought that we can be able to create ice cream made of onion na talaga naman originally or sa culinary, ginagamit talaga siya sa pagluluto when we are sautéing or when we are doing different dishes. So ginagamit siyang pang-ulam. Pero with the help of research activities that we were conducting sa laboratory here in the Occidental Mindoro State College, we have been able to at least showcase what is very unusual na kung saan nakagawa po tayo ng ice cream.
I would just want to talk about yung problema ng low prices for onions, especially sa farm gate price. Because if I'm not mistaken, sa 2022, you can correct my numbers if I'm wrong, from 42 pesos, naging 12 to 15 pesos per kilogram. Tapos nung pumasok pa yung mga imports, naging 8 pesos. So let's take a look at muna at yung impact on the local farmers because we're all familiar with different onion-based products. I mentioned mo nga that there are other products apart from ice cream. But then how does this actually help yung mga local farmers? Because as we mentioned, there are some onions that do go bad or natapon na lang and maybe the prices are just not worth it anymore to plant at certain points. How does this help yung local farmers sa area po ninyo?
It was an eye-opener to everyone to come up with something that is very different sa which kung ano yung available sa market. With that, in 2022, tama po yung data na bumaba po talaga yung presyo. So hanggang sa nag-drop pa nga po ng 5 pesos. And one thing that we think is that paano namin matutulungan or paano matutulungan ng paaralan ang mga farmers natin kung patuloy na bababa yung presyo ng mga produce nila sa kanilang mga bukirin. So with that scenario, so we've come up yun nga sa paggagawa ng research na kung saan we have been dahil mayroong mga resources sobra-sobra and wala silang idea kung what's next after nung harvest and walang buyers dahil sobrang baba ng sobrang baba ng presyo. So with the research activities that we have been doing, so yun nga po nagkaroon po sila ng option. Kumbaga they will not just rely na lang o kung hindi na lang sila magre-rely sa pagtatanim ng onion, but we have this option na pwede rin palang kumita when we process onions.
Let's talk about yung research process ninyo. And first of all, whose crazy idea it was to actually create ice cream na onion-based, diba? Because I cannot put two and two together. Una-una yung candid review mo kung anong lasa ng onion ice cream. And then of course, about the research process, yung marketing niya, and of course, yung reaction niya from the public.
So we've conducted a benchmarking activity po kung feasible or possible ba pwedeng gawing sweet treat ang onion. But through the help of research, we have been able to unleash the potential of onion in making it as a main ingredient in making sweets or sweet treats, specifically ice cream. So during the heating process, nagkakaroon ng conversion na yung pungency is nai-eliminate po. The pungency in onion is being eliminated due to the heating process, and as well as nagko-convert po into sweet. Nagkakaroon siya ng sweet taste or nako-convert sa matamis yung pungency. So yung mga compounds that are available doon sa onion is being eliminated, and it's being what they call this converted into sweet taste. So yun po, talaga namang nakakatuwa at nung una medyo hesitant yung mga consumers, ano ba talaga yung lasa ng onion ice cream? Kasi nga, it's very, very, parang, it's a crazy idea
Oo.
na talagang sino gagamit ng ng sibuyas para sa paggagawa ng sweet treats. So we've conducted sensory evaluation, we've standardized the formulation of the ice cream, and yun nga, consumer acceptability testing. Nung una medyo hesitant yung iba na tumikim, but then later on when they have actually tried the ice cream, they have been able to realize that it's possible pala that we can use onion in making dessert.
Just looking at all of this, na-distract ako kasi kanina when we were looking at the products, may onion pandesal, may mga
Yes, sir.
iba't ibang produkto doon. When you look at all of these innovations that you are doing, gaano ka-importante yung creativity ninyo? And of course, yung pagka-crazy ninyo to be able to turn all of these ingredients that siguro we don't necessarily equate to other certain food products into something new?
Aware naman po tayo siguro doon sa when life give you tangerines, pero para sa akin is when life give you onions, okay?
Oh,
You should
tangerines
find a way
pwede
to
na rin,
make-
oo.
Yeah, you should really find a way to make the best out of difficult and unexpected situations, even if they seem unpleasant. Kumbaga, you should really look on to the possibilities that you can be able to create something out of the readily available resources, specifically yung makakatulong po talaga sa marginalized sector, specifically sa mga farmers po, when the time na mawawalan sila ng pag-asa, at least they could have an option na hindi lang farming solely yung pwede nilang maging activity, but as well as they can also try making different products made of what they have in their farms. So yun po, that's why creativity helps a lot, reading literatures helps a lot, and as well as kailangan nating maramdaman yung mga nasa paligid natin, specifically the farmers. The farmers who feeds the world. Without the farmers, we don't have rice.
Yes.
We don't have something on our table. So we salute all the farmers that all of their hard works should really be paid off, and it should be rewarded.
For this week's Weather HQ, don't miss us next week here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Have a great weekend.